coming. I don't know what happened to them. I know he sent me an email this morning, and it was a shame because I was going to answer him back saying that he could watch the session live on Facebook. Okay, so we are going to have a couple of sessions that are live on Facebook. So if you happen not to be able to make it to one, you can always watch it later. Okay. So we're advancing in technology, right? Reaching more people. So how is everyone? Yes? Okay. I think we've got one more teacher here. Just going to tell her to come in. Esther, do you want to join us? Yes? Okay. All right. No, it's okay. You can either there next to Orchidia, wherever you want. Okay? All right. So we're going to... Oh, where's my clicker? No, not there. Down. So there. No, here you're going to feel alone. Lonely. I'm so lonely. You can go there. All right. Okay. All right. So here we go. So I will have to be talking to you, but to the camera at the same time. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to be famous or not. Or terrible. Okay, so first thing, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching live. So the session today is called All Alike but All Different. All right. So what are exactly your expectations for the session today? Could you just talk to each other really quickly? So you two together, you two, and you two. Just very quickly, what are you expecting to get out of today's session? Just 1 minute. Off you go.
And how can you help them as an individual person that have special needs?
Okay. All right, so what would you like to share? Katrina, tell me.
Different points kid or students learning difficulty, but trying to side of it and see how they interact with other students and focus on them as an ordinary student.
Sometimes it's not easy, right? Yeah? Okay. Joseph, what do you think?
We also spoke about different levels of learning and the way the students acquire it and misbehaviors and also different interests. For instance, the ones that are from professional schools or the ones that are just different levels at secondary or.
Okay. Orchidia, what do you think?
We are talking about challenging moments.
Okay. Right, students who are a bit more challenging. Okay, with problems. All right. And Esther?
How you can help children who have special needs within the group.
Okay. All right, so we're all focusing on different, and Esther said special, right? So what is this? So what different things do we have in our classrooms in terms of, oops, sorry, I'm working again, give me a second. There you go. All right, so we're talking about different how, right? You're saying that you have students with different interests, with different levels. We've got people with different motivations in our classes. Hi, oh, come in, right? And obviously we also have kids with problems, right? We do know that we have kids with problems. All right, can you tell me what differences do you have in your classrooms? So what sort of different age level, okay, different ages? That happens a lot, but Elena, you don't have that problem.
I have a student the other are 10.
10. So he's 15. Why is he attending a group? He failed. All right. Okay. Do you think he failed, or a student like this, a student, a social problem? Okay. All right. So, all right. What other problems do kids usually have?
Not concerns the language.
Family problems?
Not concerns the language, also the level of English they have.
Okay.
They come from a different school and they learn too little
Mm-hmm.
or too much.
Mm-hmm.
That happens also. That
Yes.
happens also from a Portuguese school and others.
Mm-hmm.
Students change to the state school and they have different levels in either too much or too little.
Okay.
That affects also the class.
All right. What about physical, emotional problems that affect kids and therefore affect our classes? Lack of sleep, yeah.
Most of them have emotional problems.
Emotional disorders?
Most of them.
Okay. What else? Come on, you're not touching my favorite one. Everyone has it nowadays. Hyperactivity, yes. ADHD, right? Every kid seems to have ADHD. Seems to have, yeah? Seems to have. All right, so here are a couple of, sorry, this is, okay, here we go. All right, so here are a couple. Do you recognize them? Yeah, these are just a few of the so-called special needs, okay? The so-called special needs. So we've got ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger, development delays, emotional or behavior disorders, like you were saying, hearing impairment, visual impairment. We forget about this, yes. And we have quite a few kids. No? Lisa, you don't? Good. No? Learning disabilities as well, right? The most. All right, but my question is, when we talk about special, what is special about this in terms of the student? Why does the student need a label that says that they're special?
It can be a barrier to their learning, or they might progress as quickly because it's an obstacle.
Mm-hmm. More. What do you think?
Why do they need?
Why do we call them special needs?
No, what's the thing? They need more attention. Most of the times, parents think that they have this. They have it's a time burden. They need that so that they need to be different so that
They are special.
yes,
To be special.
Yes.
Okay, in the evaluation.
You could talk to the group and you expect them to evolve. Okay, someone will be best, someone will be worse. But it will be for their age level, and these kids will probably have special needs because they won't be able to. They probably won't be able to keep up with the group.
Okay.
To give them different activities.
Right.
Yes, more time.
All right. So if you had to define the word special or the term special needs, what would you say special needs are? Okay. Laura.
Ability to learn.
Ability to learn.
Memorize,
Okay. Participate. Kate. Okay, to interpret. Well, anything else? Focus as well. Okay, so I went online. I went to the dictionary. This thing is playing tricks on me. Okay, so I went to the dictionary, to the dictionary.com site, and I typed special needs. Okay, and this is what I got. So in the context of children at school, it's particular educational requirements resulting from learning difficulties, physical disability, or emotional and behavioral difficulties. Okay, would you agree with this? Yes? Yeah, me too. All right, then, so going back to all those, the special things that we have, and like I said, these are just a few. If you go, if you do a bit of research and you start looking for special needs or difficulties, learning difficulties at schools, you're going to get pretty long lists. I think we're a bit used to talking mainly about dyslexia or ADHD. We do talk a little bit about autism and learning disabilities, yes, but then we put less emphasis, less focus on emotional and behavior disorders and also on development delays, right? Because these are quite broad. Yeah, actually everything else fits into these, which is quite surprising. All right, so of these, which are the ones that you have encountered the most? These are the ones I've had over these years, but which are the ones that come up more often? Dyslexia, okay. Emotional and behavior disorders, such as, for example? For example, what sort of emotional disorders do we find in kids? Lack of confidence. Okay, all right. Some of them have no self-control, right? They can't regulate their own. Silly questions. Maybe, are they silly or are they silly? Do you think? Ah, that's what I was going to say. Because sometimes for them, they're important. Mm-hmm.
What we think it is obvious for us
is not for him.
Sometimes we don't know if he's
making fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yes, yes, that's it. Some students can't accept authority.
Some students don't accept authority, okay, right? So ODD, are you familiar with this term? Yes? Well, it's a problem that I'm really interested in. It's oppositional defiance disorder, okay? We'll talk a bit about it. And it's not just the kids who don't have a problem but seem to have a problem, okay? That's not just what we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to look at these and we're going to just think about them for a while, all right? So learning, development delays, okay? Development delays. So it would be impossible for us to talk about everything that involves development delays, but can you think of, what does this mean to you?
I know. I have when they are 5 years old and something happens in their life, there's always a kind of obstruction of their development. I think with the concentration.
Okay.
Because if it happens to someone, a sister or brother is born, or someone dies, or if the parents get divorced, at the age of 6 and or 5 till 6, 7,
something
happens to their development.
Okay, right.
I always ask, what happened at that age? And said, oh, it always happens.
Something,
It
okay.
can be physical. For example, when I was at the ODS, we had a boy, James, in our class, and he, at the time, we called it, not a nice word now, retard. And he, while we did English or history, he drew trucks. That's what he did. He drew lorries and trucks. And but he needed a British school because his parents were British, so they were working here. So, and he was with us in classroom.
Okay.
In our school, which is a state school, when this happens and it's so obvious, for example, we're hearing, they are taken up as a class if they have special, if they have special teachers, but they are with the group in some subjects, but for instance in English, which is too difficult to learn, and they leave the room.
They leave the room and they have lessons.
They have one teacher working
with them.
There was also a teacher.
Okay.
when it's okay, it's like this.
Yeah.
We can't learn at all.
Yeah.
We can't learn at all. We have to do something.
All right, so the key thing here with development delay is that every child learns at a different pace, even if they don't have any of the problems that we were mentioning here, right? Yes? Okay. So for kids who do have development delays, and if you don't if there's not a teacher available to take them out of the room, and so that you can keep on with the rest of the class, and you do need to work with him. Some things that you can do that are really helpful are establishing routines. Okay, so if a student knows that this is going to happen, then you're going to do something else, and then you're going to do something else, it's going to help them get adjusted to the pace, all right? Obviously, this takes out the element of surprise, and you can't do it with every single lesson, maybe, right? But if you try to establish with that particular group this sort of routine, and then you tell the student in advance, all right, so today we're doing something different, it's going to be helpful. Also, hands-on learning. Okay, so use real things. So if you're working with younger kids, if you're teaching them food, you know those toy food that we have, if you use those things, it's going to be more effective to them. Obviously, as they progress and we're starting to teach them more abstract concepts, it's going to be more difficult, right? But you can try and adapt or try and use as much real material as possible with them. Then motivation. We know that these kids, their failures are more usual than their successes, right? So what we need to do is really focus on what they did well, on what they've already achieved, right? So for example, if you have a kid who has a hard time holding a pencil, will a worksheet be the best way to get the student motivated? No, right? And can he do that differently? Could he, for example, have the worksheet and use his phone? I'm talking to, for example, slightly older students, use his phone and record the answers, right? Use technology to your own benefit. It's also going to be more motivating for the student. Well, it's not easy for a test, it's not likely to happen for a test, but for other things, you know, in a class, you can actually make it like a fun activity for everyone, okay? Right? So discussion. Students with development delays usually have a hard time with language production, okay? So the key here is to keep insisting, keep them talking. So even if for small periods of time, but you know, like every single lesson, get them to speak a little bit, right? And then obviously sitting arrangements. They sometimes have the tendency to get distracted, or because of the lack of motivation, they won't be as interested in the lesson as usual. It's nice to have them sitting next to someone who can actually help them, right? Someone who can be their buddy and you know, take notes or assist them in some way, right? Okay, so this is development delay. Yes, and I had here allow them to use, for example, a tablet or draw if they're younger, okay, to draw instead of writing, okay, yeah. Then, hearing, this thing doesn't want to work today. I think I'm going to come here and just do this. Yes, hearing and visual impairment, okay? All right, have you had students with problems like this? Jesus never had, you've never had? No, nothing, a little bit, Kate? Glasses?
They come to the front.
Okay.
In front of the classroom.
Okay, all right. All right. For example, me.
There are special schools normally.
Yes, but that is if they're completely blind or completely deaf, right? But sometimes what we have is partial hearing problems, right? Or partial, so they don't see very well. For example, take me. You know I wear glasses. How many of you usually see me in glasses? Never. Ever. Okay, I refuse to use them. I'm always, as a kid, and I disguised that so the teachers wouldn't see that I couldn't read what was on the board, okay? So it's not always clear, and it does stop. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it was an excuse for me not to pay any attention in chemistry, by the way, okay? I used it as an excuse. All right, so if you know that you've got kids, because these can also be temporary. All right, we do have lots of kids with earring infections, right? Especially if you're working with younger students. And when that happens while they're taking their antibiotics and all of that, their hearing capacity can be a bit reduced, right? So you can use amplification systems, just like use speakers, something that we use all the time, right? But make sure that they're close to them, for example. You also seating arrangements. This is valid for both hearing and for visual, right? But some kids just don't like going to the front of the room because of that, right? Because it makes them stand out. And if we're talking about teenagers, if there's one thing they don't want to do is stand out, all right? They just want to be as invisible as possible. So you have to be careful with how you do that, okay? Maybe change the layout of the classroom for everyone every now and then to give them an opportunity to be a bit more at the front. With videos, you can use subtitles, okay? It can actually be an interesting activity for even the other students, right? Being able to watch it with subtitles, quite easy nowadays. Yes, I also think it's a very yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, and even if there's not the situation of the noise, I also think that it's more helpful for them sometimes to have the subtitles than to just be listening, okay? It's something else that they can focus on, and they can start relating what they hear to what they see, okay? Right? Here, in Owen, obviously cooperation. You can have someone helping them take notes, right? It's like the buddy we saw with the learning difficulties, right? Establish cooperation with one of them. And here also, audio recordings. You can record the lesson, or if you're going to read a text in class, or if you're going to give a text in class, it would take you, what, 2-3 minutes to read it before and record it on your computer, and then you can give it to the student for him or her to listen to it, okay? Then obviously interaction. There has to be a lot of interaction between you and the student. If they can't hear you, they need to be seated in a place where they can at least see the movement of your lips. And in English, right, it's a foreign language, right? So imagine if sometimes it's difficult for them in Portuguese to be able to understand what people are saying, let alone in English, right? So there has to be a close proximity between us and students in that sense. With here, well, this is pretty obvious, but I confess that I forget, okay? I've got a group of adults, and one of them has a problem, and she asked me, beginning of the year, can you please print things in large print, A3, because I really have a problem. But because she does not wear glasses, I always forget, right? And then I see her, because I usually send them stuff by email or on Moodle, and I usually see her with her phone just enlarging the file so that she can read it properly instead of actually using the paper, okay? So yes, it's something that we would say, obvious, of course, but then at least with my opinion. All right, so any other strategies that you have for learning disabilities, hearing or visual problems? Come on, I'm sure you do. All right, 1 minute. Talk to the person next to you, see if these ones would work for any of your students, and if you have anything else to add. 1 minute, go on.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
For any of them, yes, for any of them. Yeah.
Parents are involved, and that's one example that someone who really feel, especially in school, she was at school with her daughter, and mother was always so proactive with her. And I think she managed to stay with her until full time. And only then did she need to stay behind. So that's
Okay. Oh, they're ignoring me. They're busy talking to each other. Okay, so let's see. I heard some really interesting stuff. I heard Esther here talking about parents. So what were you saying there?
There was a little girl in one of my daughter's class called
Yes.
And,
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, exactly. And her mother was really proactive. First, she sent us all, the first day of school, she sent all the parents a leaflet made by her explaining what her daughter liked, what she was like, what Down syndrome was, etc. And then she always taught her daughter at home, and she went to the same. She was always at her age level, and she was able to keep up with the class until about Form 5. And only then did she need a special teacher or to be taken out or a different classroom. And now I know that she does a lot of YouTube videos with her, and she has even become somewhat of a celebrity. I think she has interviews with. Yeah, it's really important. I mean, she could have just, if they'd given up on her, she could have no abilities, and she's doing really well.
So it does. We all know that the level of involvement from parents does actually. Yes.
There are good associations here in Porto.
Mm-hmm.
Where we have groups of students, like 20 students or more, that go there every single day. They go to the supermarket, they do shopping, and they choose the things, the items they want to buy. They pay for the things, they know the change, they give the change, the money, they recognize, they know how to, they go on bus tours also, they buy the ticket, they get on the bus, buy the ticket there. They do everything for the everyday life. It's very good.
So we're giving them real life skills, right? We're helping these people become independent and active in their lives, right? Not having to rely on someone else for every little thing that we would take for granted, right? Okay.
Parents are very worried about that because if they get older, or they're not here anymore.
Yes.
They do routine jobs.
Yeah. It's the same with autism and Asperger's. Yeah? Okay. You have lots of them. Okay, and are they included in the same class? They're in the same class. More than 20 in one school. That's a huge amount of kids. Autism, yes.
The problem is that you don't know, they are unpredictable, and when they start screaming or doing things like that, it's impossible. Even if you want to keep them inside the room,
it's really difficult.
For the others and even for themselves. So it's more difficult. I think from I see the other classes where they are, and I know it's a problem because even if they try to be in the same class, it's not always easy.
No, not always easy.
Yes. They are even dangerous. The others we are at risk with these students because they lose control.
They completely lose.
And either they hurt themselves or they hurt the others.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, do we really want to separate them from everybody and then you've got less social acceptance?
No.
You've got a friend.
No, they have problems with sociability.
Yes, it often affects verbal and nonverbal communication and social interaction. Obviously, autism has a very, very broad spectrum, right? So we're talking about there are different types of autism. There are different, I wouldn't say levels, but there are different, it is that, right, with degrees of autism. Asperger would be at the high functioning end of the spectrum disorder, autism spectrum disorder, right? Yes. Some of them are very good at learning. Yes. They're usually, but not all of them, okay? What some of them, they are usually good at one specific area, right? What they don't get is jokes. They don't understand jokes, right? They don't understand metaphors. They don't understand sarcasm, right? They don't understand when people are making fun of them. Yes. Some of them have a really hard time establishing eye contact.
So you do that as a teacher
Yes.
automatically through
Yes.
and that is the worst thing.
Whoa, no. Back in November, I was happy to watch a teacher called Homlu up in Vienna. He was there for a conference, and he's a special needs teacher. He teaches English to kids with special needs, and he was focusing, for example, on autism, and he had some really, really nice stories to share. And one of the things that he said, and most of what I've come up with today was based on his talk. I became a fan. Okay, and he's a really nice person. So if I know that if you have specific problems with this, you can you tell me and I'll get you in touch with him, because he's really, really, and he comes to Porto very often. Okay, so very, very often. All right, so organization and structure. They need routine. A student with autism definitely needs routine. They need to know exactly what is going to happen next, because if they don't, they become distressed and they go into those fits that Giza was talking about. Even if it's something like, there's a different teacher today. I'm absent and somebody else is covering for me. So one way is, before that new teacher comes in, someone of trust goes in and tells them, we're going to have a change today. Instead of Mr. A, we're having Mr. B. Okay, simple as that. It could help soothe the child. Okay, right. So that's one. Also, visual tips. Have visual things throughout the classroom, right? Now, as we go into high school, this becomes more difficult because they don't always have the same classrooms, even though that is one thing that I think schools should try the most, is to keep a class with a student with autism always, if possible, in the same classroom. Create a safe environment, okay? Even because they need something called home base. And home base is a place that you talk with the student about. He knows that it exists. It can be inside the classroom or it can be right outside the classroom, and it's a place for them to regain control of themselves. So when they're going onto a problem and they start screaming or repeating something, you tell them, okay, now it's time for us to go into home place. You can actually call it home place, and the student stays there until he recovers. Okay. Now this is not punishment. It cannot be seen as punishment. All right. It's really a place, and that the class needs to understand that it's a place for the student to be safe, for their sake and for his sake. Okay. Now, some of them really don't like working with others, okay? Some of them do. So when we talk about group work, and when I talk about group work here, I'm talking about role plays, okay? Having someone to work with them, because they do need to be monitored. And sometimes us as teachers, we cannot be there monitoring just him or her, right? We need to circulate. So have someone in the class, again, a buddy, because sometimes they work well at home with a sibling, right? And if we have that information, we know that that child specifically will be able to work with somebody else, okay? So get them a partner to work with for role play, but also respect that some of them prefer to work on their own, right? We need to respect that. Now, in terms of teaching itself, well, they obviously need extra testing time and for exercises as well, right? Sometimes, not all of them, probably. Yeah. Again, it depends on the level of how deep the problem is, right?
Some of them need someone to read them, yes.
Okay. Yes. The questions. They need someone to read the questions. Yes. It all depends. It all depends. It's good to have graphic organizers. So if you're giving them a text, specifically tell them what they need to look for. So you have, for example, highlighted in the text beforehand, before you give it to the student, highlight what specific problems they will, or ideas or concepts they need to look at, okay? Right, so like I said, no jokes, no metaphors, because they will not get it. Okay, all right. Now we're going into the realm of learning disabilities. Okay, now learning disabilities is probably the biggest bag I've ever seen in terms of special needs. Everything falls into learning disabilities, even the things that we would say are different. Okay, even the things that we would say that are not a learning disability are something else. Let me just turn on the lights here because it's a bit dark. Here we go. Okay, so even if we don't know about it, we do have lots of learning disabilities. So what can you tell me about learning disabilities? Yes, and what else?
Sometimes even it's their mother tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Have difficulties with their mother tongue. I think the parents don't get that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the difficulty is not the language.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, everything is the knowledge is what is the background of the thing we are talking about. And they don't know because they are alone most of the times. They're alone or
With not enough
with
support.
not enough support.
Yeah.
And things that we used to when we were children, at least my family, we spoke a lot. We had the grandmothers at home and grandparents. We have everyone sharing a Sunday lunch or something that we may exchange ideas and the things. Now it's, well, they don't know really. Sometimes I'm trying to get a debate about something, and the problem is the lack of ideas, not the lack of English.
Yeah, yes.
It's not the difficulty of the language, it's difficulty of it's
Critical thinking.
It's not even motivation, they don't know about it.
Yeah. Critical thinking. They don't have critical thinking. Learning disabilities, and I've got a very interesting definition here. It's there are learning disabilities when there is a problem in one or more base psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language. Whoa, so many things can just if I don't sleep, I bet that the following day I'm going to have a learning disability, right? If I don't eat properly, I'm going to have a learning disability. If I'm having a test close to 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, okay, my brain's turned by mashed potato by then. All right, but the ones that we do know that have some, things that have been signposted real, we have to break the tasks and break instructions too. So one instruction at a time. So instead of telling the students, turn to page 11 and do exercises A, B, and C, and then you can check your answers on page 98, you have to do this little by little, okay, step by step. You have to go to the student and you're going to say, okay, now you're going to page 11, all right? And then the page is open, you say, okay, so now you have to do A, B, and C. And actually, I do this. I circle the ones that they need to do. I don't care if they're 6 or if they're 12 or 15 or 18. I will do it, all right? Some people say that it's just spoon feeding. I honestly don't think so, okay? They have lots of opportunities to be contradicted and to suffer in life. It's not going to be in my class, all right? And then after that, I write a post-it. I give them a post-it and I say, when you finish A, B, and C, and I actually put A, B, and C, then you go to page X, okay? And that little post-it stays there with the student, and that gives me time to go around the class doing something else with them, okay? Right, time is really important because they need more time. We need to give them more time, right? And why not use technology? Because sometimes it's easier, it's faster, right? And it's more motivating and we achieve the same end, right? It's not just the regular way. So technology, yes, really important. Now, the next one is, if this thing cooperates, which isn't cooperating, dyslexia. Oh gosh, I have a whole page of notes on dyslexia, right? Okay. I consider myself to be a little bit dyslexic because I can never tell right from wrong, left.
Left and right.
Okay, I did admit it. So I left and right. Well, you never know. When I'm driving, I turn. For example, if I ask, okay, so which side, right or left? And my partner says right, and I turn left, and he goes like, your other left, your other right. So it's not that one, it's your other. So you can see how scared I was when my driver's license exam, right? Because it was crazy. All right, so dyslexia. We do have a lot of students. We see dyslexia associated to a number of other situations. So usually, or not usually, but it can happen a student with, for example, attention deficit, right, or hyperactivity, or with one of the emotional disorders to have dyslexia as well, okay? Now, with students with dyslexia, there's a lot of study going on, there's a lot of material going on, but these are just a few tips that I think are practical and that can help us, okay? Who has dyslexic students here? Lots. One, yeah, no. No students dyslexia recently?
My husband thinks he's dyslexic, but he never had any trouble.
Okay.
He confused V and F.
You know that,
Okay.
they have advantages in exams.
Ah.
Mistakes are not
Considered.
So.
So we have a lot of doctors finding. My gosh. Oh my gosh.
If you are not seen as dyslexic at the age of 10 until 12.
Yes, it's until 12.
Until 12, you
not ask for that to be recognized.
Later on. So lots of people do this. And then, I have been teaching for a lot of years now, I know that what is real and what is not. You see by the type of mistakes.
Yes.
You see by the difficulties the student has on reading, on
yes.
things. But there are others that just can't write because they make mistakes. They don't know how to learn. And they make mistakes, obvious mistakes. Mistakes from students who don't train their writing and
yes.
don't study.
They don't study.
But they have this, and at school it's very common. So I have 5 classes in all of them.
Have someone, 2 or 3 that are dyslexic. Oh my. Okay, so with dyslexic students, less is more. Okay, so that means that if you're going to work on a text for a class, all right, you should read the text yourself and remove as many words as possible. Leave only the essential. All right. Now, that's a lot of work, isn't it? Luckily, we already have some books who work with dyslexic tips. So the one that comes to my mind right now is one that I really like working with is New Inspirations. Okay, New Inspirations. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. New Inspirations is a book. It's got several levels, right? Several levels. The one I was using, that I used the most with dyslexic students, was the green one, which I believe is intermediate level, so B1, more or less, okay, B1 level. So that would be 8th, 9th graders, all right? And it's very good because it's got all these dyslexic teaching tips. So for most of activities, you're going to have something to tell you how to work that specific activity. It also has adapted tests. It also has adapted text. And it's got lots of material for the students, and it takes a lot of work away from the teacher. All right, so I think that it's a nice tool. I don't have any no advantage in doing this, but it is a book that I found to be very useful when I was teaching kids who had dyslexia. Okay, so it's a book that I think schools should have. I think we have one. We have New Inspirations down in Leicester. I'm not sure if we have it here, but it's a really nice book. Okay, so avoid sentences going over to the next line. Okay, so it means that this should never happen, right? This sentence, the word line, should never be there. It should be here. okay? It helps students to be able to read like this. Some of them even have a reading ruler, which is something that they put to help them. Yes, okay. So it's used for a number of reasons, but this is one of the uses, all right? Then always double spacing between lines, okay? So that they're less likely to confuse the words to mix or the letters to mix. Never use the back of the page, exactly. So this, never, okay? It goes into something which is structuring that I didn't put here. Okay, exercises need to be logical, and they can't be doing this. In a test, they can't be going back and forth looking. So if you have a text and you have 3 exercises for that text, it's going to help the student if you have the exercise, if you have the text, and then the exercise. And then you do it again. You put the text again, and then the exercise, to avoid them having to go back and forth looking for things, okay? Also, very important, and people don't pay attention to this, is the font that is used when we're doing worksheets, okay? The font that we do, if we use anything that is serif, okay? Comic Sans, serif, whatever, okay? The lettering is going to become blurred and confused for the student, okay? There is this one, Open Dyslexic, and this is a font that you can download to your computer. It's absolutely free, okay? And it's perfect to be used with dyslexic students, okay? Then, tinted paper. White paper is terrible for them. What they need is something that's cream or pastel color, like light pink or light blue. It's going to be much, much easier for them, okay? And yes, this paper is a bit more expensive, but, we don't give them photocopies, like 20 photocopies per lesson. And maybe if we talk to parents, we can get a small budget there for the paper, okay? It does make the difference, okay? Yes.
For example, reading very white paper with black, it makes things start to go a bit wavy.
Yeah. All right, so then mind maps and visual aids are very useful, right? Less text, more image, okay? Also, instructions need to be very clear, and you need to demonstrate. Sometimes you need to demonstrate. It's not enough to just tell them, read the instructions and do the exercise, okay?
One thing that I do also when there are multiple choice questions,
Mm-hmm.
never give them similar examples, similar words.
Yeah.
Like leave and leave,
Mm-hmm.
or left and another word which is similar, because they don't see the difference.
No. Yeah.
So it must be really different. When I make multiple choice exercises, I always choose quite different things, because if they have any form of similarity, they don't get there.
Yeah, because sometimes they don't see the syllables, some syllables, right? That's why sometimes we use color codes, all right? Color codes for prefixes, for syllables, so that they can see that there are 3 there, or there's 1 there that needs to be read, okay? Because one of the problems they also have is what they hear and then what they write, okay? So imagine that you've just been told a telephone number, okay? And now you need to look for paper and a pencil to write that number down. Are you going to remember it? Not likely, okay? So this is what happens in the brain of the student when you're doing, for example, a dictation, okay? It's too difficult, okay? It's not that they don't want to, it's just too difficult, okay? All right, and help them with spelling with mnemonics, okay? Yeah. Okay, it does help them. All right, we need to hurry up, otherwise, oh, thank you. All right, so we're coming to my favorite ones. Okay, we're coming to my favorite ones, and I think I jumped a slide. Ruben, didn't I jump a slide? I think I jumped a slide. Yes, okay. All right, so if you know me, you know I have a little boy at home with this, all right? And for a long time, I refused to believe that it was real. I thought it was just the teachers and the doctors and everybody. But yes, it is true. And ever since he started school, I've been doing basically what that mom, Esther, was talking about did. So I've been at home, I've also been the teacher. I helped him to learn how to read, how to write, because at school he just couldn't, all right? My boy is seated at the front. He's on a desk on his own because nobody wants to sit next to him because he distracts everyone, right? And he doesn't do it on purpose, he just does it. Right? The same thing that the teacher had to move him because one day she realized he was extremely quiet, and that's because he unscrewed every little screw from the computer right in front of him, okay? He will start playing like this, and he gets completely absorbed, right? And people say, but what are you doing? He says, I'm playing. Don't you see I'm playing? It's like building blocks, just everything. He lives really in a imaginary world. He's got very good grades, funny enough. Yes, but mom is like with a whip around him, but it is very difficult. At home, we don't have chairs for him. He has a flat ball, okay? And he's very happy with that ball because he can never sit still, okay? At school, unfortunately, that's not possible. Right? So we do have a problem of a child who cannot sit still. And then we have them, don't we? The students who keep bouncing their chairs, right? And then till they fall and hit their heads and all those sorts of things. All right, so with kids like my son, some things that help are total physical response, TPR, all right? So if you want to teach the body, use Simon Says. If you want to do an exercise like what I've showed you a couple of times. Put the exercises up on the walls. Have them stand up and move around. If it's not possible, if they're teenagers and you don't want them walking around or lying around, tell them to go for a walk. Tell them to go to the toilet. With my boy, what I and the teacher came up with was this water strategy. He has a little bottle of water that he needs to fill in very often, okay? But that gives him the break he needs to stand up, go somewhere, and come back, right? Just that movement of going to refill his water bottle is enough to give him some quiet moment, okay? To allow him to relax. Now, hands-on learning, obviously, these kids have a tendency to really respond well to any activity that is visual or kinesthetic, okay? So movement and eyes. So if you're in a history class, or if they're doing a listening exercise, it's going to be harder for them to concentrate and get things done, okay? Suspense. Okay, this is something his teacher taught me. She says that something that works really well is when she's explaining something and that she says, listen, 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 because then someone will have to answer a question, right? So automatically my boy goes like this, all right? He knows something will be expected of him. So he knows that in that moment he needs to pay attention. Also, she goes, do you know what happened? She pauses to get everybody's attention, and then she tells them what's next, okay? Obviously, with less dramatics, we can do this with older students, right? Yes, teenagers and so on. Random questions. So, if you see that a student is really distracted, what do? Come on, be honest. We're all honest. It depends. Sometimes we shout, okay? Sometimes we scream. What else?
Lower your voice.
Lower your voice, right? And you expect them to. Does it always work? No. All right. What does work? What does work? You tried using their name?
Yeah.
Yes, right? Okay, so what if instead of just telling them, Orquídea, be quiet, because you're a very nasty student. Why? So, Orquídea, is it raining outside? Okay. Laura, what time is it? Random questions, all right? You're just getting them back to focus on your lesson, and you're not reprimanding them. You're not telling them off, okay? Timers. With my boy, he needs this. I was going to bring one, and then I forgot. We've got this timer. In the beginning, I used kitchen timers, okay? Those we use for cooking. But then I found this shop online that I'll tell you what the name of the shop is later, because I can't now because of that. But I can tell you it's a shop in Portugal, in Leiria, and they're very good. And they're called Pim Pam Pum. Oh, no, Pim Pam Play. They have this timer that looks like a lighthouse, all right? And at the top, there's a big light, red, yellow, and green. And you've got two timers. You've established the time limit for the activity, that is 30 minutes. And then you've got the yellow timer, which is a warning. So let's imagine the activity is 30 minutes. I set 30 minutes, but then the warning will come at 20. All right, so the child has that in front of them, or the class has that, and they see that it's green until it's 10 minutes to go. When it's 10 minutes to go, the light turns yellow. All right, and when the light turns red, that's it. Okay, it also avoids us teachers having to, come on, 10 minutes to go, or this and that. Okay, especially if you've got a very noisy class. All right, it helps quiet them down.
We are doing presentations.
Yeah.
They raise cards.
Oh, yeah.
The other students,
No.
because they don't know if they are going too fast or too slow.
Yes.
And then there are two students at the front, and they are controlling the time.
Yes.
And they raise and they show yellow, careful, but
almost done. And then
almost
red.
or green, and you have a long.
You still need to speak. Okay, then we get to emotional and behavior disorders. Whew, that's a lot of information today, isn't it? Yes, but you know what? Each of these could be a session on its own. That's the truth, right? That's the truth. Okay, so with students with emotional and behavior disorders, we're looking at depression. Okay, we're looking at depression. We're looking at addiction. And I'm not just referring to drugs or alcohol, I'm talking about mobile phone addiction. I'm talking about video game addiction, okay? So, mobile, right? They're addicted to their mobiles, they're addicted to their video games. We have kids who are actually, who need to go to doctor appointments for this, right? It's really serious, really serious. So what do we need? Well, we need to engage students, obviously, right? And how do we engage them? By using something that is a bit more appealing, that is also auditory, right? And we need to give them encouragement. If your student is depressed, he's not going to be motivated, right? You will not motivate a student by telling him, come on, you can do better, right? That's not how we will achieve it. It might work for some, but it's not likely to work for everyone, okay? Yeah. Now, my favorite is ODD because it's something that is real. For a long time, it was considered a myth. People didn't know it existed, all right? So ODD, which is opposition defiance disorder. And what sets it apart from kids who are just plain rude, one of the things is that it lasts for longer than 6 months. Okay, and you do not see, you know, those kids when you say, but I don't understand, the parents are great, he's, you know, he has rules, he has boundaries, and I don't understand what's going on. So usually there's a problem there, right? Again, like with dyslexia, this comes hand in hand with other things, all right? Now, first thing you have to do is you have to pick your fights. Is it really a problem for them to be wearing a cap inside the classroom? Each person has their own battles. I'm just giving you an example, okay? So just make sure what really, really is important to you, all right? Because otherwise you're going to spend your whole lesson fighting instead of actually having a lesson, okay? And they're pretty good with argumentation, okay? They're the future politicians of the world, okay? Then consistency, structure, and clear consequences, not punishments, consequences, okay? Consequences can be bad or they can be good, all right? Remove the word punishment from the equation and you'll get much better results. Praise, establish rapport, mind your tongue, because if you get into a fight with a student that is a bit more difficult, even if they're younger, I don't know if you're going to win or if you're going to have to resort to, please leave the room now, to make a stand, okay? So be careful here because you don't want to go into open confrontation, okay? That's a big mistake. Avoid power struggles, again, all right? Even because you might find yourself in the ungrateful situation of having a class full of people who are enjoying themselves. They think it's great, okay? Seeing the teacher and the class clown have a fight. Plan. Most of these problems go away when you plan your transitions properly. Classroom management, okay? 99% of behavior problems in classrooms can be solved with classroom management, okay? Which is something people don't work on enough. And remember, it's never about you, okay? It's never, ever about you, all right? It's a problem they have. Okay, so are they really special? So we've got all these kids, and this thing doesn't want to work. Again, Ruben, give me a help here. Here you go, good. One more. That's it. Okay, so we've got all these kids, but in a classroom, don't we have all of these in different ways? Yeah? Even if they don't have a paper from their doctor saying that they're this or that, right? But they're all special and they're all different in their way. So that's what I wanted to tell you today, that these techniques or these tips, that they do not have to be used only if you have special needs students, right? They can be used in a number of situations and in a classroom, okay? And that's it, all right? Thank you so much for coming. That's the feedback form for the people online if you want to give us some feedback. I'll be sending you everything, all right? And I really hope you enjoyed the session, okay? Now, in our blog, the IH Portal Teacher Training blog, I would love to invite people to write articles and to send them to us so that we can publish them. For example, if you have one of these that is close to heart, like I am with ODD, if you want to write a little bit about it, if you have some resources that you would like to share with other people, just please send them in, okay? And we would love to publish things, all right? And there will be more, there will be, maybe not tonight, but tomorrow, there will be a list of articles or web pages that you go to for help, okay? Thank you very much for coming, okay? I'll see you soon. Yes? Off you go. Bye-bye. Bye. Go. Bye-bye. Is it stopped, Ruben? Yes? No, you stay, Gina. You stay. Okay? Because I need to talk to you for girls. Okay? So we're having the school competition, the writing competition,